Guys, right now we're going to talk about kind of one of our main features for today. Amazing artist, I know him for a long time. He's in charge of the vocal booth. I don't know if anyone went into the vocal booths, but also the Beat Nexus. I saw some people sit around with 4 players there. He's been doing this for a long time, building installations, building custom controllers for artists, designing and consulting huge companies I can't mention, their custom products and stuff that are got to do with audio visuals and technology. And he also going to perform for us after talking a bit about how he came about building the Beat Nexus and the vocal booth. And you'll see also everything that he's using is custom controllers. I'll let him talk about all this stuff. And we also see a performance from him. So please give it up, Moldover. Please come.
Thanks.
Nice. Moldover, I'll let you take it away, just if you can talk a bit about how you started with music technology, how you came about building these awesome controllers, custom design, and maybe some, if you can share any of the other big projects you worked on with other artists before going to the installations we have here.
Yeah, thanks, Yeuda. Thanks for hosting tonight, too, and thanks to the GRAMMY Museum for hosting this excellent event in Ableton. I'll thank people later. Yeah, I got started doing all this because of a passion for music and just playing in bands and doing more traditional musical things, and then really falling in love with electronic music when I went to school, Berklee College of Music, a long time ago, and wasn't at all interested in electronic music before then. I thought it was this kind of like soulless, repetitive stuff, and I discovered all kinds of artists that are much easier to discover these days with the internet, doing really interesting things with electronic music. But then I started going to those shows and finding that most electronic music performers didn't put on as much of a show in the sense that I thought of it, you know, with like people to watch on stage, you know, doing stuff with instruments, machines, to generate sounds and modify sounds. So that kind of became my passion, is figuring out ways to make stage shows more interesting, more expressive for the musicians, making it easier for audiences to connect with artists who are performing electronic music live. So still love live music, and it's a big thing for me, but it's led into this path of often creating tools for myself and for other artists, and now for, you know, establishments like museums to make it easier for people to play electronic music. So that's kind of the genesis of it all. I think I'll just jump right into showing you guys some of what's going on with my work at the museum, and I'll try to kind of connect it to these things as I go, and I'll talk about some of the artists that I've made stuff for. So that's me. And I'll start off talking about the vocal booth. I think it's got all these different names. In designing it last year, we called it the vocal booth. And at some point it was like, you know, the singing activity, and it says sing on the wall. So I heard somebody call it the singing booth today. I'm still not sure what to call it, but it's called the vocal booth in here, and it looks like that yellow door. So apologies. This is a mixture of like my own phone photography and some pro photography like that. So that's the inside, where there's like a custom controller with mostly gaming controls, buttons and joysticks and stuff like that. And I'll talk about why, but yeah, there's some better shots of it, and the video screen is a big component. It's kind of karaoke adjacent, is how I like to describe it, or super karaoke. I don't know. I haven't been in touch with karaoke much over the years. Any karaoke fans in the audience? Actually, I'm terrified of karaoke because I have a hard enough time like singing in a serious way, so to do it for fun is always scary for me. So I can relate to people that would rather be in a booth to do this activity than people that would be out there playing the drums and guitar and stuff in front of everybody they can see and hear. So yeah, here's a little video from a little tiny section of the video from somebody that's better at explaining what happens in there.
Try out your vocals, la 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 la. You can get some expert advice from Grammy Award-winning artist Her, and sing along with tracks from Nirvana, Shakira, and more.
That was an excerpt. Here's a terrible video I made trying to explain what it does. Come into your private vocal booth, speakers, video screen, a custom controller, and 2 mics, so you can sing with a friend. There's a great introduction by Her. Put the headphones on the phone here. It's on headphones so you don't get feedback like I would if I
Academy Award
pointed this
and
microphone
Emmy
at a
Award
speaker.
winner, and your very special virtual
So
host.
her takes
I'm
you
here to
through
give you a little
some
inspiration
tips
and a few quick tips on how to let your voice shine.
and how this all
This
works.
vocal booth
You
is
can
a
just
channel.
skip ahead, pick a song, and now you can sing. And there's a bunch of automatic effects on your voice. Terrible job with this. Sunshine cheesecake.
That's where we'll stop. But you can see there's that custom panel I'll show you later. I'll talk a little bit more about how it works experientially. But this is how I connect it to my work. I always try to, put myself in my work. I think Jasen did an excellent job of finding activities that he was dreaming up and looking at the work that I've done and saying like, oh, I think Moldover would be an excellent person to do that. So to some degree, I'm a vocalist, and I'm also a controllerist. Controller is being all these things we use to, control our computers, what's ultimately happening in some software, some ones and zeros somewhere. And this gizmo over here attached to my performance microphone, is this thing on? Yeah. Is a device I've been developing for a long time. I call it the MC1, Microphone Controller 1. I was trying to break my habit of coming up with whimsical names and having something that sounds more like a music industry product, like the MPC 2000. But yeah, it's this thing that you hold in one hand, and most of what's cool about this is it's a study in kind of like ergonomics and like what the microphone is as an instrument and how to augment it, right? It's an augmented instrument, kind of like this augmented guitar I'll talk about later. But your voice is the instrument. The microphone is just a thing that has to be somewhere around close to your mouth in order to capture the sound. And performance microphones are these things that we hold. And I like performance microphones because I like holding them. And I like the ability to put my microphone on a stand so that I can play guitar and play these things as well and still be able to sing. So a lot of effort went into making this a thing I could just throw into a microphone stand and take off of it easily. And then the last requirement be that it's something I can like manipulate with my hands, just one hand, so I could be like expressing and whatever, gesticulating as I like to do when I'm singing. So all it's got are a bunch of buttons with lights in them, and they add different effects to my voice. So like here's an echo, here's some reverb. So there's 8 different effects on buttons, and there's a little joystick here in my thumb, kind of like you'd have if you were playing video games. A lot of great ergonomics happen on gaming controllers. They're really good if you're trying to study like how to make things for humans. The gaming controllers feel real good in your hand. They're very expressive. They're very accurate. So a lot of the parts and ergonomics and things I use to build my instruments come from that. So anyways, this joystick lets me manipulate those sounds. So I could, for example, add this octave sound, and I could make it 100% wet, and I can change
Something called a format.
make it
Higher.
and all the effects can be modified that way, like the simple echo. Could be a fast echo, or a slow echo. So, yeah, 8 buttons, 1 joystick, many possibilities. Maybe I'll play a little piece of music with this, if that might entertain you. And put my little headphones in. And this music is actually doesn't showcase everything the MC1 can do. Reason being, you don't want to use all your tricks at once. But I often make this the first song of a concert that I play because it only uses the one instrument, because it starts with just my voice, something I think we can all relate to, and it kind of gradually introduces what the thing does. So anyways, that's more performance geek stuff, but here's a song called I Choose. A cold December, the coldest I remember. A walk to the river I used to ride on. The sun's gone down to make room for night.
I sit on my blanket and pray to the light. I choose the end, and I choose how, I choose when, I choose now. I write to my lover, I wonder if a mother and all of my friends will miss me next year. Who'll keep my home? Who'll keep my dogs? Who'll keep my memory when I let go? I choose the end, and I choose how, I choose when, I choose now. To flow like this river back to the sea. I choose the end, and I choose how, I choose when, and I choose now, and I choose the end, and I choose how, I choose when, and I choose. I choose now.
Thanks. So, this is just a photo to show you how many prototypes there were, experimenting with different form factors and fun things that you can do. And that's all the software that's under the hood running, including Ableton and lots of plugins and stuff. So yeah, other things besides this that came to bear building the vocal booth were controllers I've made for other artists, which is a relatively new thing for me. I got into all this to make performance instruments for myself, and yeah, it wasn't until later that I kind of found the joy in making instruments for other artists. And it's often when I found an artist that had like a really strong vision for something that didn't exist, and they had a really sort of valid need for. You know, some artists will be like, I want a giant floating sphere that I can like circle around and it has lasers shooting out of it because it would look cool. And then there's artists like Glasses, who's the keyboardist for Todd Rundgren and others, and he was playing, he's playing something like this on his own, I think. I'm not sure he plays this with Todd, but it was an Akai keyboard that had some drum pads, and he developed a technique where he could play drums and bass with just his left hand, and he's just a phenomenal finger drummer keyboardist, and he's like, I really need something better than these little drum pads, so that's what this controller became. This is a thing I made with a company called Livid Instruments, which attaches to guitars and lets you augment them in a way that I'll show you with my guitar a little bit later. This was just a bigger, badder, more durable version of a thing called the Trigger Finger from M Audio. Anybody remember that? That's an old controller, but a great one. And these are a couple of things I modified out of old aircraft test and radio equipment to be musical MIDI controllers. And at first I was like, really? You want giant knobs? And then I saw what the artist does with them, and I was like, okay, yeah, cool. This is what he does. Seth Norman. Demoing
Everything you're about to hear was made with seismic shock.
So that's like in the JPL like test lab over not far from here, and yeah, he needs big knobs to do that stuff. So, anyways, back to the vocal booth, which is what we were talking about here. I always start stuff as sketches in my notebook because it's the fastest way to get all the ideas that you have after you have conversations. I had many conversations with Jasen leading up to this. Sometimes I talk to my friends. This was a specific vocal thing, so I actually talked to a couple of friends who had made vocal installations at museums I had made other stuff for. So just gathering all the ideas, getting them down as quickly as possible. Then they get refined. This is just like a drawing to kind of show what I think is going to happen. There's going to be a screen in front of you with lyrics like you have in karaoke. There's going to be like a little song select panel. There's going to be 2 different panels with the same controls to let you modify your voice while you sing if you choose. And then there's a little sort of interactive sequence, a thing to take you through the steps in what it's like when you go in the vocal booth. Anybody been in the vocal booth yet? Yeah? Okay. I recommend you all go at some point because I think it's very fun. But you'll see that it guides you through these steps, basically. Lets you get a little intro video with some help if you want it. Lets you pick a song, all the stuff you saw in that video earlier. So yeah, then I started designing the hardware. I made some 3D models in this case. That's helpful sometimes just to make sure that things won't bump into other things on the panel or inside the panel on the guts of it. This is a drawing made for the fabricator, just the holes to cut, where buttons and things are going to go. This is just numbers to tell you what's connected to what when you start wiring it all up. Lots of wires on the background, on the back of the panel. This is a prototype. I really like to prototype. Brendan talked a lot about the iteration that happened with the Electric Forest, and in my experience, it's definitely great if you have time. We didn't have a lot of time, so there wasn't a lot of iteration. But iterating and making the thing and then trying to make it better, it's a really great process. And then also putting it in front of people. I didn't get any good photos or videos of people playing it, but I just put it in front of friends and family, sat them down, handed them a piece of paper with what the video host says ultimately when you experience it here. But I was like, okay, imagine, a superstar is reading what's on this paper. Now, see if you can do the thing, and that's always illuminating. So there's a script. Read that real quick. Just kidding. No, but that's just a point to how carefully we thought about the language we use, trying to make it brief enough, for the relatively short attention spans we have these days, to receive the information from the host about some of the technical details, some of the let's get inspired to sing. Not everybody is super comfortable singing a song, even in a confined booth. So trying to do that, and then and then just make it fun, basically, and inspiring. So we got her to do the hosting video. That's all thanks to Jasen, I believe, and the connections through the GRAMMY Museum. So that's super wonderful to have something I worked on, represented by such an amazing artist.
Welcome to the Sonic Playground.
I won't play the video because you guys can enjoy that. But look how awesome this video looks.
Welcome to the Sonic Playground vocal booth. I'm her, singer, songwriter, composer, multi-instrumentalist, Grammy, Academy.
So it's like a 2-minute video. I'll spare you the video, but you can enjoy that. Shout out to Heidi Corley, who did all the graphics for the entire Sonic Playground exhibit, but also gave me those files so I could refine them into these still screens that come at the beginning and the end of the experience, and create all the menus. I can do all the technical stuff, but graphic design, not so hot. Fabricating metal panels, not so hot. I'm pretty good with cobbling together electronics and things like that. So I stick with that, and I stick with a lot of the software stuff, which for this is all just live and Max for Live. So that's probably a good minute to jump out of there, and I'll switch to screen mirroring, which used to be a little easier. There it is. So I'm going to show you what's going on in mirror. Got it. So this is what it looks like when I perform. And if you guys have questions about my performance stuff, you can hang around after and I'll answer them. But the vocal booth runs on this Ableton Live set. So all that has to happen is restart the computer each morning and open this set, as the documents are called in Ableton Live. And this window becomes full screen. You can't see it all here because we're running a lower resolution. But all the video plays from within Max for Live. Cool thing about Ableton Live, it can do video too, thanks to Max for Live. So this was really my first deep dive into having it do video stuff, and I'm not doing anything fancy like manipulating the images or anything like that, but it has to play videos, has to play them in sync, and has to do a whole bunch of other stuff with audio and whatnot in the background. So Yeuda showed us earlier. Thank you, Yeuda, for showing everyone what the arrangement view looks like. This is really useful of the two views, right? There's this kind of random access Excel spreadsheet looking session view, which is freedom from the timeline, great for writing and improvisation. And this is the timeline where everything kind of goes from left to right and things are specifically laid out. So you can see I made little markers. Well, it's so small. Let me zoom in here. Little markers here for each song. There's a Nirvana song. See if I can scroll while zoomed in. Yeah, there's the Mariah Carey, Pharrell, Shakira. There was a lot of pre-work that went on. Actually, this was more iteration as we discovered, like, yeah, even like a 4-minute song like In Bloom is like kind of long for people who want to like experience all the awesome stuff in Sonic Playground and the rest of the museum. So we did these custom edits. I did these custom edits where I shortened all these songs down to approximately 2 minutes. So you still get like 2 choruses, usually like 2 verses. You know, they have different song forms, and I tried to keep all of the sort of like stuff you know and love about that song. But making it 2 minutes made the whole experience a lot more, sort of efficient. And I know also like when there's cool groups and things that come through the museum, it's like lots of people want to do that. Singing is fun. It's a popular activity. So making it shorter helps more people experience it in those scenarios. So I'll show you this thing right here. This down here is a Max for Live device that I created that controls the whole operation basically. And I made little buttons. This isn't a thing that the users see, but this is a thing that I made for myself to make sure it all works. So there's buttons here for each of the kind of states that it's in. You know, it boots up and kind of resets everything. And the video screen will kind of show you some of what's happening. There's the splash screen, which means just the like, you can sing, press the play button. There's the intro,
Welcome to the Sonic Playground vocal booth.
which is the video.
I'm her, singer-songwriter.
There's the menu. Each of these is actually a video. So these are all just me doing some pretty basic video editing to make these videos. You can pick different songs. It's playing different videos. Made some cool little visualizer thing there. And then you hit the next mode, and then you're in karaoke mode, and it's doing its thing. So other cool stuff that's going on. There's a whole ton of stuff. Modern computers are so incredibly powerful that like you can just do whatever you want. So here's some of the effects that are on your vocals when you're singing in the booth. There's a lot to kind of correct for people not understanding like microphone technique, for example. There's a whole thing to like, you know, where you hold the mic. A lot of people, there's a lot of people if their first time giving a public speech or something, they do one of these and they're like, you know, you hold the microphone in front of you, right? No, it's like it's got to be like a few inches from your mouth the way that they're designed in general. So a lot of correction for like people that are loud or people that are quiet or people that have a really deep voice or people that have a really high-pitched voice or whatever. Trying to kind of like homogenize things a little bit, and the reason is you can make everybody sound, you know, good, or you can make only some people sound great, you know. And so I went more for like, let's make a lot of different people sound more similar in some basic ways and trying to make them sound good. So for those of you that know audio tech stuff, this is equalization to change the tone. This is a gate to remove some noise. This is some compression on low frequencies to tame the proximity effect, which is the thing where microphones have more bass when they're closer to the thing that they're picking up. I'm making little notes for it myself. Cool hot tip for people that use Ableton is you can rename devices to be whatever you want. I don't think you can use emojis. So Ableton, if you're here, please, I'd like emojis in the names of devices. No, just kidding. But I leave all these notes here as a trail of breadcrumbs for me when I'm back here a year later trying to remember what I did. and explain it to other people. So here's a compressor just to account for quieter singers, make quiet people louder, make louder people quiet. Again, trying to make it all kind of even and sound good. De-essing sounds kind of bad if you don't have some de-esser and you have lots of sibilants. That was me without de-essing. Anyway, just a whole bunch of stuff to control volume and tone of the incoming vocals. But that's not the fun stuff. This is the fun stuff. This I'll talk about just briefly, but you saw there were joysticks. Each singer has a joystick, and I went for these analog joysticks, so they actually have continuous, they're not just like an old school video game or like the D-pad on your gaming controller where it's just like 4 buttons, up, down, left, right. It's actually like continuous moves. So when you do stuff like I was doing, is this still, no, I'm in Ableton, so I can't use that thing right now. You can do continuous shifts of your format with the joystick, and you can fade in the harmonies with the joystick. So that was kind of like maybe overkill for what the installation or the activity needed, but I thought it was really fun. So that's what all this is kind of accounting for the analog nature of those joysticks and having to clean that up a little bit. And then there's a whole bunch of fancy automation stuff, which I'll show you in a minute. But these are all the effects. The effects, kind of like with the MC1, are really carefully honed and carefully tuned to be as fun as we could make them, and also kind of as obvious as we could make them. So there's no like subtly add a little bit of reverb to make it sound a little nice. No, it's like, boom, I got lots of reverb. And like, boom, I'm auto-tuned. And everything I say is in pitch because I got auto-tune. That's my auto-tune simulation. But they're all either like on or off, and you should be able to really obviously hear that and experience that, because most people aren't used to hearing their voice with, harmonies and format shifting and stuff. So there's a whole art to how these are ordered, like it matters if your echo comes before or after your harmony in general. You don't want like to put a whole bunch of echoes into a harmonizer because it's going to confuse the harmonizer. They're like, wait, I'm suddenly hearing 2 copies of everything because it's echoing, and your harmonies
again.
get messed
Thank
up.
you for singing in the vocal booth. Press play to hear what you just recorded on the speakers.
That's a feature.
If you enjoyed this experience, be sure to
Feature,
try
not a
the
bug.
other interactives in Sonic
It's called
Playground.
Timeout.
There's so much to discover.
It's called Timeout. No, it's not. I don't know why that played, actually. Oh, I do. It's because I played somewhere in the timeline. Yeah, there's all these timers that, like, when you play the installation the way it's intended, it starts a timer, and then at the exact moment when the song ends, it plays another video of her saying, thanks for singing in the vocal booth, outro kind of stuff. So anyways, there's all these effects. It's really important what order they're in. Most of them are pretty intense combinations of effects. Like, there won't just be like a vocoder, which is one of the effects. It's a vocoder with a little bit of reverb and some EQ, and there won't just be an echo. It's an echo that is diminished when you're singing and augmented when you stop singing, so that you hear the echo more at the ends of phrases. All these little things that in music production you get deep into. Yeah, just kind of make it fun to mash those buttons and play with that joystick. And if you don't want to do that, and you just want to have a singing experience, a lot of this came from brainstorming with Jasen and thinking about what would make this super fun. So we kind of thought of like everything people would want to do, and we thought, well, surely not everybody's going to want to be like wiggling a joystick while they're singing along to Mariah Carey or whatever. So there's this whole sequence of automatic effects where I built an arrangement of effects, which is a common thing in music production, where you do the kinds of things I did in that performance, where you add a little echo at the end of a phrase, you add harmonies during the chorus, you might add some weird effect during the bridge, just to make it different. So there's a sequence for each of the 4 songs, and they add, those effects for you, and they also light up to show you when they're happening, so you'll see what's going on with them. And you can always disable those by just pressing a button on the panel. It's pretty straightforward. And there's also a whole bunch of arrangement stuff that got done for the harmonizer and the vocoder. They're not just like picking random notes. I got a whole college degree in arranging, and I used it here to specifically pick which harmonies are automatically generated based on your voice throughout all of these songs when you sing them. So yeah, any questions? Maybe that's a good moment because I just gave you a whole lot of technical information and creative stuff, and you can go back and forth with the Q&A. I'm going to show you some stuff about the Beat Nexus too. Yeah. Yeah, good question. This is like a Apple. The question was about the processing power being used. I got to repeat the questions for the video recording, I think. Yeah, I kind of went to town. I mean, I have all these kind of best practices of I'm not just like throwing tons of stuff on there. I don't care, you know. I try to be intentional about, you know, if I put a device, if I put something in there that uses resources, if I add an EQ on top of the vocoder, you know, there's a reason for doing it. But yeah, it's using a lot of resources. This laptop is an Apple MacBook Pro M2, I believe. It's also running a slideshow and an external monitor, but it's pretty representative of the machine that's in the installation, which is an Apple Mac Mini. I think it's M2 or whatever the latest-ish generation was back in end of last year when we bought those, I think. So yeah, and I pushed it. Like, also wanted it to be as awesome a sonic experience as possible. So I'm also doing some things like I'm running a really low buffer. This is just a little time delay that prevents the computer from glitching the audio because it suddenly decides to look for Bluetooth devices, or it's trying to download your email or something you really don't want it to do while you're performing music. But if you have a crazy fast computer, you can use a very small buffer, and then things happen fast and feel really good. But there's probably a higher buffer on the one out there running the vocal booth to protect it and make sure that there's never any glitches. But yeah, that's a great question. Other questions? Vocal booth related? Yeah. Oh, you in the front and then you in the back. Yeah, great question. The question was like, is the stuff for these, you know, augmented microphone and all that, is it in the hardware or is it in Ableton? And the answer is like, these have little microcontrollers called Arduinos, which are really easy to learn and program computers that live in these controllers. They send out MIDI messages. They're just standard MIDI controllers. Not terribly unlike the push and the move that you saw earlier, but much, much, much simpler. Those are much more advanced pieces of hardware. These just send out messages to control what's happening in Ableton Live. Kind of like the custom panel I made for the vocal booth. And I can show you more about how they're mapped out and what they're controlling if you stick around later. There's a question in the back, and then I think we should probably move on to talking about Beat Nexus. Yeah. Yeah, great question. It was about stability, and like I'm using all these different things. There's video, which I've never done before. I was really worried about the stability when I start feeding an external display. Stability when you're, I don't know, maybe having too much data, something like an analog joystick or like the sensors in the electric forest. Like Brendan showed us, like there's huge streams of MIDI coming in like constantly. So yeah, basically the only thing I have is best practices around, similar to what I said earlier about conserving resources. Like only use the thing if you are really using it. There's a bunch of little tips and tricks about, you know, Ableton actually has really good code as far as resource management. So if you have something like an EQ, you know, it might have 8 different bands of EQ that you can use, but if you just turn off some of them, it like actually uses fewer resources. So an example is I use a lot of Ableton's built-in devices, and I only use like a third-party plugin, like a third-party piece of software, if it's something Ableton Live doesn't do super well. Like it doesn't really do vocal harmonies in a super authentic and rich and awesome sounding way. So that's one of like 2 or maybe 3 different plugins that are running. So it's more stable if you use the built-in Live toolkit. It's more stable if you use Max for Live and you're good at using Max for Live instead of, again, using a third-party piece of software. And then there's some other things about just the computer is a lot of it, like keeping the computer as kind of clean as possible, trying to get the computer not to check for Bluetooth devices or all the things that we want our computers to do, and like just run this installation. And Brendan is an ultra expert in that stuff, and I have many tips and tricks thanks to him that have made my pieces more stable here. Yeah, cool. All right, so maybe we should move on to the Beat Nexus, because I know we're marching towards the end of our time together. And there's a little bit more to share here. Let me go back to someone who's more hip with screen mirroring has to show me the faster way to switch from mirroring to extended display. Yeah, so this is, big shout out to Curious Beast, who Brendan talked about, who basically designed all the walls and cool looking cabinetry, and I did some very, very modest little pieces of hardware, electronics, but they're responsible for all the bigger things. This was putting our heads together about where all the cables go and where's the computer gonna live. This is some of Brendan and I banging our heads together about like make sure the computer restarts periodically and like empties the trash. And I didn't mention it, the vocal booth like records you, so you get to like listen to yourself back at the end of the experience. But that means after a few hundred people have recorded themselves singing, you're gonna fill up your hard drive basically. So there's these little background housekeeping things that aren't very exciting for some people, but they're exciting for me. And then of course there's all these amazing people who made the whole exhibit happen, including sound content and other things, and like the artists who contributed music to the vocal booth and all that good stuff. So yeah, that would have been a better place for questions. But let's talk about the Beat Nexus. I workshopped that name a lot. So all I have to say is like I like the name. I'm glad we went with Beat Nexus. I got really into naming because I have a friend who does that professionally. He gets hired by like museums and stuff when they need to name a new thing. And he gave me all, if you're interested again after the event to know about naming stuff, he gave me all these great concepts for choosing names for things. So I get really geeky about it. But the idea of the Beat Nexus is it lets you make beats with other people, and a nexus is kind of a crossroads or a meeting place or a place where things come together. And that's part of why it's got a giant X in the middle. It's like Nexus. X is one of the coolest letters in our alphabet, I'm pretty sure. So a lot of the inspiration for this came from a line of instruments I've been building for over just about 20 years now. Jeez. Maybe I shouldn't talk about the number of years I've been doing stuff now that I'm this age. But I made these things called jam boxes going back to 2005. They were very much inspired by seeing interactive art at festivals, festivals like Burning Man, for example, way back then, and seeing lots of cool interactive art and participatory art and things that gets people together communally, but not as many musical activities or sound activities in that realm. So I started making things like this that, friends of mine would call like the drum circle of the future or something like that. This was one, this is like the pro version. If you happen to have, 4 friends who are all really good controllerists, you can do concerts on the Synco Masher like we did for a minute. These are really big things that are hard to transport to festivals, which was the thing I was doing at the time. So I made an all-in-one thing called the Mini Masher. And this was actually the most fun. Less is more sometimes was the lesson I learned there. I took a lot of lessons from that and built this one that's permanently installed in Las Vegas. And it's at a thing called Meow Wolf's Omega Mart. And it's really fun. And this one, it just fits in your backpack and lets you remix video game theme songs. So anyways, those are all the things that helped inspire and contribute ideas for the Beat Nexus. So kind of like the prototypes I showed you for the MC1, having a whole sort of iterative process, getting to try out things. I guess being a little bit repetitive in your art, like I tend to write songs today that sound like songs I wrote a long time ago. And at one point I'd be like, I need to change, I need to innovate, I need to whatever. And then other times I've been like, no, maybe that's just me. That's my thing. That's me doing my song. So I think Jasen saw that and was like, yeah, Moldover's really good at that thing. We should get him to do that thing for Sonic Playground. But make it Sonic Playground, which it clearly is. It's beautiful, it's bright, it's inviting. It's got 8 pairs of headphones. It's pretty awesome. Here's, I'm gonna skip that video and show you another kind of terrible demo video. This might be a little bit loud. Apologies. And put headphones on. But I'll point out before that there's a little timeout thing happening. So timeout on the centerpiece, little blinky animations drawing your attention to where you should play. So we'll get the headphones on. So this is the rhythm station, obviously, and each of the brightly illuminated pads in the center unmutes a different drum loop. Sorry, it's a terrible video. I'll make a better one today, I promise. But yeah, there's 4 different sides. There's rhythm, bass, harmony, and melody, and they're each sort of intended to coax different ways to play music out of people. So as Jasen spoke about earlier, one of the big things with Sonic Playground, and especially this in Electric Forest, was trying to present instruments that didn't strike you as traditional instruments. Like piano lessons when I was a kid. I'm afraid of pianos. I don't want to touch a piano. There's a right and a wrong way to play it, that kind of thing. Presenting something that just is light up pads in a configuration you've never seen, or the gaming controllers in the vocal booth. It invites a more playful, everybody's invited to the party. Anyone can pick up a video game controller. Maybe you don't like video games, but it's a lot less intimidating than a violin. Excuse me, a violin or something traditional. So a lot of what makes this, I think, fun is work I've done, again, with my own instruments, sort of finding alternative ways to play music and sometimes lower the barrier for entry. Because like I said, I went to a music school, and there were a lot of students who were just incredibly virtuosic instrumentalists. And for a while, I wanted to be that, and I spent a lot of my time practicing guitar and trying to be a shredder or play all the jazz standards or whatever, What's that? I did, yes. Do all the things that the school wanted to do or what other people wanted me to do or what I thought was cool. In the end, I kind of just struck out on my own, and combining tech with instruments and finding new ways to play is what got me excited. So, yeah. So let me give you a quick little demo of these instruments and what I mean by alternative ways to play music and controllerism. So actually I can just leave that logo up there, that's fine. Any controllerists in the audience? Nice. It's a bit like asking if turntablists are in the audience at this point. So real quickly, this is an augmented guitar. It's just a controller, buttons, built in the bass. You can just have fun with it, essentially, which is what I aim to do with my instruments. This instrument right here is designed, it's called the Mojo, and I made it to playback sounds from the computer and let me manipulate them in more interesting ways. I don't play drums, really. I don't play bass, really, so I kind of invented an instrument that lets me modify those kinds of instruments. And again, just kind of mess around, play with a bunch of things that I've pre-programmed that let me change those sounds. So here's a song with some drums in it. I'm just gonna modify drums for a little while. So I've practiced this instrument. Thanks. I've got some little things that I do, but I didn't plan any of that out. It's pretty much just an improvisation of filters and stuttering and all these other effects that are super fun. And some of them are constrained in ways that make it easier to sound good most of the time. I can make it sound bad if I really want. What is good? It's all relative. So anyways, point being, these are the kind of things that inform how I make things like the Beat Nexus, and I try to give people the simple and fun experiences of like triggering sounds and manipulating those sounds in different ways. So anyways, I thought it'd be a good moment to play a song and show you how the Mojo and the Robocaster guitar and the MC1 all kind of fit together. Is that a good idea? All right, cool. So the thing about knobs, you have to turn them down after you turn them up. I can't make believe this story is dead. There must be one for me, just like you. Please make two. Don't know why everybody tells me emotions lie. I still want your balance, I still want your madness, I still wanna taste your poison bliss. There must be
I can't deny all the inside. I've come undone for you. There must be one for me, just like you, just like you. Yeah, I can see one for me, just like you. Needs me to.
Thanks. All right. Just testing some tech there. This is another art form I've been pioneering, which is the switching between slideshows and performance. And we'll wrap it up pretty soon, but just want to talk a little bit more about the Beat Nexus and give you the opportunity to ask some questions. Sorry, these notebook sketches are kind of faint, but once again, that's how it all starts. And it's a great way to get your ideas down. Yeah, oh, I can't zoom. You're not seeing the zooming I'm doing. That's okay. That's because we're not mirroring. I'll go back to mirroring. Yep. There. I just want to show you a little better. I don't know. I sketch out all these different, like, what are different note arrangements that are going to be playful for people? What are things that are going to attract them to different musical patterns, help people play scales and chords and the structures we think of as being good ones in music. I used a commercially available controller called the Airy Touch, which I like to do kind of when I can because it makes a part replaceable. You know, it's less custom. And these are really interesting controllers because they have, they're like a giant iPad. They're squishy and they give you pressure sensitivity, so they're very expressive if you want them to be. And that was a feature that I was really interested in using. And they also have lights, so they give you some visual feedback, which is really helpful when you're approaching something you've never seen before. If you get a light and a sound, it's a little easier to understand what's going on. So here's a quick little demo of how these controllers work. This is just me like seeing how far I can kind of push these things and what I could do with their expressivity and their lighting features. So all the lights are reacting on the whole thing to that one little zone. So you could do a lot with them. Super cool. These are some early sketches of what like the whole thing's gonna look like. There was originally gonna be like this master panel in the center, but it just seemed too complicated. We scrapped that idea and instead we put that cool visualizer you see out there. This is getting into details of, you know, what all the functionality is. Then made some prototype panels out of acrylic with a laser cutter. It's a pretty easy to access tool. You can find those at Makerspaces or something. I just borrowed 3 of these array controllers, the previous generation that were black instead of white, and made some prototype panels that you can see here. And this one I did get to playtest a whole lot, which was really nice. I got a lot of good ideas from people that played them. I made some successive panels. I didn't want to go out and buy more acrylic, so I just made some out of cardboard to test some iterations on the interface design. And maybe I'll use these for a minute just to explain the ideas. The idea was to make like 4 unique interfaces, so even though it's 4 different copies of the same controller, they'll have very different programming, give you different expressivity. This one's for melody, and you get a big strip on the bottom where you can choose notes and glide between them, and you can also play with arpeggiation, which is a fun musical gesture, and some other fun things. This one's for bass, and the idea was to group notes into like chord qualities, like root, subdominant, dominant. You don't need to know the musical terms, but basically, like, is this more consonant? Is it more pleasant sounding, or is it more dissonant, sort of less pleasant sounding? And so I made the bigger zones more consonant, so you'd kind of be attracted to those. That's part of our kind of Western musical convention, is like we'll play something that sounds like home, and then we'll play something that sounds like going away, and then we'll come back home, and that gives you the contrast that you have in bass and harmony. Speaking of harmony, I did the same thing. Like home is the big thing in the middle, and further away, chordally is what happens in the other zones. And there's the rhythm controller. So yeah. Oh yeah, LEDs. I built this thing for Virtual Riot last year, so I learned how to build arrays of addressable LEDs. And in this case, I put them inside of a keyboard that I 3D printed, so you can have extremely bright keyboard. That's what I made for this guy. So I was excited to build something like that for the center of the Beat Nexus. So I wound up making this big panel with tons of LEDs on it that reacts through code to incoming messages.
So this is
from
the
Ableton.
Beat Nexus visualizer panel, all wired up.
It's pretty.
It's the neighbor's dog in the background. Yeah, there's the melody, harmony, bass, and I'll add some rhythm.
So that's the gizmo that's in the center and lights up and does some cool stuff when it's in attract mode, times out, makes you want to play it. That was fun. I got to apply some of those ideas. So yeah, this is another very different odyssey into Ableton Live. I'll make this one a little more brief, but here's what the guts of Beat Nexus looks like. It uses this view, the spreadsheet view, as I like to call it, or the session view, because there's nothing time-based about it, like everybody's just jamming, improvising. So these vertical things kind of represent the different instruments, and the devices on them. On this little bottom strip includes all the effects and synthesizers and things that let you play them. And there's just me kind of like fumbling around so I can play something for you. We chose to use kind of a neutral sound set, like synthesizers that don't really sound like, oh, like this is surely footwork, or, this is dubstep that I'm playing, but kind of more just like, oh, I don't know, like what genre we're in, but I like it, hopefully. So we picked different synths based on that. And there's some really intense stuff also happening with Max for Live here, mostly to make all the interfaces like just feel really good. It's hard to explain, but you probably have smartphones, or smartphones have gotten so elegant. The interfaces are slick. You may not notice, but they have like what do they call it? Like physics built into them. You can look at your photo, list of all your photos, and like throw it and stop it and catch it and squeeze and pinch and all that stuff. Like there's just like tons and tons of programming that has to go into that, and there's a lot of that went into Beat Nexus. So that like there might be a little zone where you can slide your finger, but making it work with 4 different zones or whatever is a programming task that I undertook. So yeah, a lot of programming. All the drum sounds came from KJ Saka, who's an artist and a friend, and I just needed a bunch of great drum loops, so he contributed those. And yeah, there's a lot of lighting stuff to make all the lights, light up in attract mode and light up properly when you play the thing. But that's the essence of what's happening inside the Beat Nexus. Yeah, again, Amazing Cabinetry by Curious Beast. Feels like I'm in the Starship Enterprise sometimes when I'm out there, and I really enjoy that feeling. More scripting and stuff to make it work. But yeah, that's the gist of it. So any questions about that? Yeah. Great question. The question was about the shapes of the panels, because I'm using all kinds of triangles and trapezoids and stuff. And on the device, the array, thanks for coming, you can only program rectangles. And I did just that. So there's kind of a limitation I chose to work within. But our questioner asks if I use the API, the Application Programming Interface, which lets you do much more advanced things with the array. But I chose not to go down that rabbit hole because the array has all these beautiful default lighting animations and things, and you can make it quite interesting and expressive and control all the lights and do, I'd say, about 90-85% of what I dreamed up just using the default toolkit. So yeah, all those arrays. Also, they can easily be like, well, no, I could do that with the API. Yeah, no. So that's the answer to your question. Yes. That's a great question. It's about sort of the note choice, I think, and how they're placed. Yeah. Well, I don't think you can see it really well here, but hopefully you can see some of the screen. It's all Western based. I went for like a modal thing. I went Dorian. I love Dorian too. All right, we should talk Dorian. I've tried different things. I thought modal would be good, kind of for the jam thing, because I don't know. I've done a few things, and I think it works quite well. So I explained the thing I did about trying to make bigger zones like home. So this is like the root in Dorian. I think it is actually in D Dorian. I can't remember. It might be C Dorian or something. And these are like, if my Dorian harmony is correct, like contain. I'm not gonna remember the chord qualities. It's like the more they sound like another key versus the more they sound like Dorian. These are more Dorian sounding things. These are less Dorian, and this is like the diminished the diminished chord in the key. So anyways, I did that, and it was the same with the bass. Is like this is the root of Dorian. I think this is like the 4 chord, and this is probably like the 5, and this is probably like the diminished, and I forget what that is. And you only get 3 notes in the bass, so you've got like a root, a third, and a fifth. This one plays chords. This one plays just like notes, 1 note at a time because it's bass. This one's a melody, plays 1 note at a time, also constrained to a Dorian scale, but you can pitch bend, and that's just the rhythm. So, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, great question. Thanks. Any other questions? Any questions about anything for any of our presenters? I think we got Yeuda, we got Jasen, Brennan still around. All right, cool. Well, is it all right if I play just one more tune, a little 3-minute zinger, and thanks. No. Well, yeah, thanks for the question. It was about prototypes and if other copies exist. These are different variations of like, other people wanted them so bad, I was like, oh, I should make them for other people. So 10 other copies of the Mojo exist. 5 other copies of the Robocaster exist, I believe. Actually, I'm still making copies of this, but I haven't finished any of them. It's been on the back burner, but there'll be 10 of those that I hopefully finish like by the end of the year, maybe next year. And it's usually just for like the rare artists that like want some crazy gadget like that. All these things you have to do more work. You have to kind of choose how they function. You have to connect them to something like Ableton for them to be really fun. So they're not exactly take out of the box and jam with them kind of things. So, yeah, all right. I'm going to play a new song for you guys. Maybe a questionable choice for ending the event. You know, one that's like not really done. But it's music I'm really excited about. unreleased, and yeah, it's the thing that's bringing me the most joy actually lately is writing and recording songs. So this is called Silence for Sale, and I'll just say thanks again to Ableton for sponsoring the event, the GRAMMY Museum for making it possible here, and of course for creating Sonic Playground. And thanks to all of you for sticking around to the end to enjoy my music. Appreciate it. Still hearing that? Yeah, cool. All right.
A weapon when you throw it by. Silence for sale. Being human, an endless climb. Swallow problems, walk straight lines. Hey, why worry? What's right or wrong? We're just a number. We don't count for long. Don't count for me while you catch your own thing. Don't give me promises you wrapped in blame. You always drag me down to get yourself high. You know you'll never understand, but you cannot deny. Every word's a weapon when you throw it by. Between the lines we will find inside. Silence for sale. Original sin, told our ending before we begin. Don't call to me while you cut your own veins. Don't give me promises you wrap in vain. You always drag me down to get yourself high. No, you'll never understand, but you can